Mr. Mason, it's Thomas Jefferson to see you, sir.
Thank you.
George, how are you doing?
I'm doing fine. How are you?
I'm well, thank you.
Would you like to join me for some hot cider?
I would love some.
Patty? Please bring us 2 mugs of hot cider. So, what brings you to the Capitol building on this blustery winter's day?
Well, I was at the wig maker's shop when I saw your horse and carriage outside. It made me think of how much I wanted to talk to you about the Bill of Rights.
Thank you, Penny.
Thank you kindly, madame.
So you would like to talk about the Bill of Rights?
Very well.
Well, I do recall that until shortly before the Bill of Rights was created, England was forced to create a Bill of Rights which limited their king's power. When colonists arrived from England, we still consider ourselves English citizens and thought that we had our rights under English law. How quickly we learned this was not the case.
And why is that?
Well, the British authorities were running roughshod on the colonists' rights. Something had to be done to protect our individual rights. When we finished the Constitution, I was so disheartened that I refused to sign the Constitution because the Constitution did not protect the individual rights of the colonists. The action of the English Parliament is totally incompatible with the natural rights of mankind, and we will use any means to safeguard our individual rights. This government that we created, our final goal was to create something totally different than what England had made, because we did not want a monarch as the head of our government. We wanted a well-balanced government so that not one part would be stronger than another. We created a system of checks and balances to ensure this would be the case. But we also want to be able to add amendments to the Constitution, but we did not want every widespread idea to be put into the Constitution. So therefore, in order to add an amendment to the Constitution, it must, 2/3 of the members of Congress must vote in support of it, and that it must be ratified by 3/4 of the state legislature. This government that we created would be a strong and central government that would represent and be the voice for the people. This government would truly unite our United States and its people. And then, as you know, we elected to add a Bill of Rights. The Bill of Rights are the first 10 amendments to the Constitution. The Bill of Rights are rights that give individual rights for the common people and rules and responsibilities for the government.
Yes, the first one. The most important one of all.
Yes, freedom of speech, freedom of religion, freedom of the press, and freedom of petition.
Be it enacted by the General Assembly that no man should be compelled to frequent any religion's worship place or ministry. That was my quote from the Virginia Act of Religious Freedoms included in the Bill of Rights.
Yes, I do remember when we elected to add that to the Bill of Rights.
You know, early on, I was very weary to have a Bill of Rights.
Why, I do think I recall this.
It was only when you agreed to add my Virginia's Act of Religious Freedoms that I was okay with it.
Adding the Virginia Act of Religious Freedom was the smartest thing I did for the bill.
Thank you, but if it wasn't because of you, we wouldn't have such a great Bill of Rights, and we wouldn't have had this great friendship.
I'm honored to have worked with you.
Thank you, but it was because of you that we have the 10 great amendments.
Well, we needed those 10 amendments to have a different government than that not-so-great Britain.
Yes, the Second Amendment, the right to bear arms.
To take away a man's gun is the quickest way to enslave him.
I do know how strongly you feel about this, but I am still worried that this amendment might be a bad one in the long run.
You are? I thought you were okay with it.
Well, I was at first, but not anymore. I mean, in times of war, this is a good amendment to have our citizens armed. But in times of peace and prosperity, we do not want every random citizen to be running around with a gun, murdering each other.
Well, that is a valid point. Well, are you okay with the Third Amendment, which is better conditions for soldiers, so the government cannot make us house soldiers like the British King made us?
Yes, I do believe that we need better conditions for our soldiers in times of war and in times of peace. It is unfair for someone to be placed in someone else's home, and equally unfair for someone to have to house someone without their permission.
That is a very valid point.
Oh yes, the Fourth Amendment, the right to search and seizure regulated.
Yes, I believe very strongly that no one should be able to search a man or his house without a warrant.
Yes, I think we all thought that.
All governments should have this, but a lot do not. Well, those are the 4 amendments that we really worked on. Other delegates, such as James Madison, worked on the others.
Even though the remaining amendments were not in our prior writing, they are still very important.
Yes, that is a valid point. The 5th one is rights when an individual is charged with a crime. This means that when an individual is charged with a crime, they have a right to a speedy trial.
Ah, yes, the 6th one, the rights in the jury. This means that a criminal is not just entitled to a judge, but also a fair jury.
Yes. The 7th one involves rights in civil cases. This means that when someone sues someone else for more than $20, that person has a right to a trial by jury. And no fact examined by a jury can be re-examined in any other court except according to current rules.
The 8th one, the right to bonds and bails when a criminal is in jail. This means when a criminal is in jail and he wants to pay the bail for it to get out, it needs to be in proportion to the crime he has committed.
The 9th one is that any right not in the Bill of Rights or the Constitution are retained by the people. This means that not all of the rights are in the Bill of Rights, but this does not mean that the common people do not have more rights.
The 10th and final amendment is that the state is the power not given to the government is given to the states and or the people.
But there are a few responsibilities that the common people have to follow to, such as they cannot go around killing random people like you were afraid they would.
That is a valid point. Well, I do believe I have to run. George Washington wants to commission 14 copies of the Bill of Rights. 1 for the Congress and 13 for the colonies.
Thank you for stopping in to see me.
It was an honor.
Good day.
Good day to you, sir.
All men are by nature born equally free and independent.